All right, so I don't know what I did in yesterday's video because it's just a regular millennial sting video, but I reached a lot of people. The video just surpassed 4,000 views and is probably one of the most viewed long videos that I've had on the channel in a very long time. And to that extent, I have to thank you guys, my regular watchers who've been watching me for years, and my new fans that are coming over here. I don't know how many of you people used to watch the old channel with the same name. But in gaining 1,000 subscribers in 7 days has been a miracle for me because I did lose my channel unceremoniously, and I am trying to rebuild this channel over here with a slightly different name. But anyhow, with that said, I took a comment, one of my favorite comments from today. I hashed it all up, put it into AI, and these are going to be my talking points from his comment. And I will put the actual comment down in the description. So if you guys want to read just the comment, you guys can see it there, and you don't have to go digging through the comments of the other video that I posted yesterday about the same time. All right, so let's get started with our first talking point. Broken promise of hard work. This promise has fallen flat with wages barely rising and living costs skyrocketing. The promise of hard work. Today, the head of my corporation decided that it was time for her to put on the golden parachute and jump off the airplane. And it was shocking. And we just got a letter in our email that said, don't talk about this. And she's gone, already replaced by someone else. And you're just kind of like, wow, that was fast. I didn't think that they could replace a person who heads the company that quickly. But that marks our third person in a year that has fled this company. Three. And these are jobs that people hold for life. These aren't your job or my job that's hourly that they could replace us with a rat on a treadmill. This is a person who's had leadership of a very large company for more than a decade, and they just decided that here it is. Here's my slip, and I'm gone. I'm like a fart in the wind, gone. But for the rest of us, this promise of working hard is told to us in our training, in by our management. You need to work hard. And I've never understood that. Because no matter how hard we work, the only reward for hard work in any corporation across America is more work. When I worked at Insight and my boss found out how much more work I could do than the average Joe six pack, I would look at through the ticketing system. And for my group, I would be doing 80% of the work for my group. Everything that was hard to do was put on my plate. And every time I complained about being held to the same standards as everyone else, because if I was doing all the work, of course, I was not taking as many calls. I was doing the hard work, the thinking work of the group. Because if you've ever worked in technology, you know that people who do this, who do support, take the easy ones. They call it cherry picking your tickets. And all the ones that they know are going to be hard or take time or they don't know how to do, they leave those at the bottom. And at the end of the day, when you're the last person there, because I worked 9 to 6 and everyone else worked 6 to 2, I believe. So there was part of the day in which I had to do the support by myself because I wanted to work later in the day. But with that said, it's not worth it. This myth that working hard is going to get you anywhere. When I was in that call center, I could see people who had been there for 10 to 20 years. They made the same amount of money that I did. And you know what all these people had in common? They did just enough work to keep their jobs. I didn't want to be there. I was a pain in the rear to management because I was too good for this job. And my supervisor said this on day one to me. I think you're overqualified for this job. You're too smart to be here. And I was just like, you know what? You hired me. It doesn't matter what your level of intelligence or capacity is. If you're a desperation worker like myself, you have to take that job. If you ask people in the job interview, do you want to be here? No. Everyone would tell you no, but I do like to live indoors and I like to have a couple of fish heads every once in a while. That's why I'm here. No one wants to work anymore for the crap pay. I think they paid $15 an hour when I was there. And they thought that was great pay. In fact, my supervisor came up to me and said, "You know, you're making a lot of money here." And I said, and I'd look at him like, "No, no, I'm not. Stop saying that to me because you know it's a lie. You're not going to make me believe it by continually repeating a lie doesn't make it true." Now, Trump may believe that continually saying something makes people believe it, but I'll tell you, $15 an hour is not a living wage. In fact, I would say that it goes in the opposite direction, that it's a non living wage. And so I would just, just tell him the truth. He had the audacity one time to tell me that I made enough money to start a family. And I just looked at him like, do you really believe the things that come out of your pie hole? Because I don't think that you're really processing these things because I knew for a fact that he only made $1 more as the supervisor of this group. And he had a lot of responsibility. He was the supervisor, I think, of up to 6 different groups on one side of the call center. That's a lot of responsibility for not that much pay. I mean, this guy had to have a wife that made a lot of money and he still had a roommate at his house. And he's probably, I would say at the time, mid 40s. Anyhow, moving on to talking point number 2. Even with full time work and minimal raises, most people find themselves struggling to make ends meet or falling behind. I've mentioned my credit card debt to you guys on this channel. Falling behind means a lot of different things to a lot of different people. Falling behind means that you need an alternative source of income that you can use right now, hence credit cards, and why the credit card debt in America has reached record levels. Because if you don't want to get another job right now in our society, you're going to have to hit those credit cards. And most people's credit cards are maxed out. I don't have a thin dime on my credit cards. And the reason for that is because there's no extra money at the end of the month. And so you are in a horrible situation every single month. And that's why they call it falling behind or being underwater on your student loans. Because no matter what you do, we live in a society where the closer you are to the minimum wage, the more likely you are to have to work 200 hours a week. Now remember that. 200 hours a week to get to a halfway decent paycheck at the Arizona minimum wage of $14.35. And you're like, well, millennials, team, I don't make the minimum wage, but I'll tell you what, if you're sitting here watching this video, listening to me right now, chances are you're in that lovely bracket of 15 to $20 an hour. In fact, today, Gen Zero told me, it's like, well, I think I make about this many thousand. And I looked at him and I said, no, I'm sorry that you don't understand how much money you make, but you're making about $30,000 a year working here. And that's with all, and that doesn't include all the time off that he continually takes. And that means he's not staying until he's supposed to, and he's taking extremely long lunches, which is diminishing his income by up to 20% a day. Because if you're not there for 2 hours a day, guess what? Now you're making 6 hours of minimum wage per day. And that's the problem with Gen Zero is their free time is much more important than working. And if they don't have actual bills, then they can do it. But this guy actually has bills. He's not living at home. Is he going to make it working here? Absolutely not. The guy's falling behind in real time. And I'm right there behind him because we're all falling behind. Every day that we're alive right now in this broken economy, we're all falling behind. And you know where the area where we're falling the most behind? And it's something I heard from a coworker today. He said this to me: Millennials team, I'm 47 years old. I live with my mother. I've worked this crap job for 5 years, and I have nothing for retirement. Guess what? Guess what, folks? That's normal. That's not an unusual thing. He makes less money than I do, has less bills than I do because he lives at home. But guess what? He lives in California. Boom. That's what's hurting you right there. If he's making the exact same amount or less than I am, and he lives in a state where the cost of living is that high, then you're not going to make it. Sadly, you're falling behind, and most people don't realize that they're falling behind because they're still they're still eating. Not every day, but you are definitely going to have a rough realization once your credit cards don't work, or let's say you don't have a job tomorrow. Bam, you're in real trouble at that point, because I know what happens when you don't have a job. You end up sleeping outside. And sometimes that sleeping outside doesn't turn into a couple days. That's the worst part of falling behind all the way to the bottom, is that homelessness doesn't stop at 1 or 2 days. People experiencing homeless, and I hate that expression because it doesn't really convey exactly what this means. It means weeks turn into months, months turn into years, and try getting back into a job when you don't have anywhere to clean yourself. That's how hard it is to lift yourself up. But at the same time, this system is definitely trying to put more people out there and become feral Americans, as I like to say. All right, talking point number 3. Luxury apartments are taking over, catering to higher income earners and leaving the rest struggling. There's no profit in making poor people housing. I've said this for years. They're not going to bother to make housing, new housing, for average people. That's why we hear the term affordable housing. You know what affordable housing is in America? Trailer park. And even those are being bulldozed in favor of people who have money. You bulldoze a trailer park and then you build luxury condos there, flushing out the rats. You're flushing out the people you don't want in your community anyway. No one wants low wage earners in their communities. Therefore, those communities are going to continue to shrink and shrink and shrink. In my city alone, in Tempe, you can drive around and see all of the construction that has been done just in the last 10 years, catering specifically and exclusively to higher wage earners. I have no idea where all these people hang out at night, but I don't know any high wage earners. I am definitely not a high wage earner. I mean, the trajectory for my life, if my wages hadn't gone up as much as they have over the past 3 years, I would definitely be living under a bridge right now. No joke. Because the cost of living is so high that even what was considered to be a high wage earner 20 years ago, today would not be considered so. And the people that are down there at the very bottom of the wages, I have no idea how you're making. God bless your little souls, because I don't know how you do it. Because I scrape by on my income. As I've said many times, it is mind-boggling to me to think that when I was 18 and the people around me in technology were making what I currently make, I couldn't imagine what they were doing with that much money. I mean, that's why they had the homes in the nice places. Technology workers today have fallen so far from grace. It's incredible that they're even still here, that we have tech workers, because even tech workers are taking a vow of poverty, a vow of living like filthy, disgusting, stinky creatures that no one wants around. Today, Gen Z was geeking out to the point where I felt like I needed to put him somewhere else. Like I needed to cage him in a building in another part of the city because he was annoying. And again, seeing so much of my own personality. Every time he says something, I'm like, oh my God, Millennial Stain, that's you. He even sounds like you. And you're like, it's getting harder and harder for me to deal with this every single day. All right. Talking point number 4. Companies are outsourcing higher paying jobs to cheaper countries. There's no shame in their game. When a corporation knows that it can take a job that in America has to pay a pretty stiff, and I use the word stiff, and no shame in my game in reference to someone that probably helped me get tossed off of YouTube. But stiff is the competition, and Google admitted that it had fired people and sent the jobs to Mexico and India. And I personally, when I worked at Insight, they like to hire remote workers in Mexico, and they would pay them a fraction of what they were paying us. A fraction. Like, I was talking to this guy that was working down there, and of course, they recruit people who speak with perfect English and who can work uh, within an office to have access to high speed internet. So it was like an agency that would hire them, and then they'd come in and they'd work at the agency, and then they'd clock out and then go home. But I saw them doing that. I worked with someone like that, and he would tell me what he was making and how really poor he was living in Mexico City. So this is fact. The good jobs are not only not available, but they're shrinking and shrinking and shrinking. And most of us will never see the inside of a good job. I've worked hourly, miserable, soul crushing jobs my entire adult life. It has never gotten any better. And I know for a fact that I don't see any place on the horizon where there's hope for the regular proletariat in this country. In fact, I say this in almost all my videos, we're all doomed and we're not okay with it. But unless we rise up like those workers in that Samsung factory did today, where they just finally had enough. Unless the American worker says, you know what, today I'm going to say no to putting the boys into that vice grip. No. And that's the only way that they're going to listen. Because any other way, they have all the power, they have all the money, they have all the say. The proletariat can only bow their head to their master for so long because that's all we can do. All of us are afraid of losing our jobs. Every one of us, every single day, we're afraid. And one of my married friends from the other state, from another state, from the East Coast, told me yesterday, it's like, millennials, team, you should not jeopardize your income for anything stupid. And I was just thought to myself, you know, this lady sound, even the way that she formulated her sentences to me, as if it was going to HR itself, because she has so much fear of losing her job. Because losing her job doesn't just mean that she would lose her house. It means her kids wouldn't eat, and she's got a bunch of them. And you know what's the weird part about it? Is that when she talks about her kids, she talks about them as being like filthy little animals. Like the other day, I said, "Oh my God, my Gen Z's got some hygiene problems," and she's like, "You should try having kids. They smell really bad." And I'm like, "Lady, are you not bathing your kids? Because you can't do that." Anyhow, I am off topic yet again. All right, so our final talking point here is going to be the cost of higher education leaves workers trapped in low wage jobs without a clear path to better opportunities. Even for people who did everything right, find themselves stuck in dead end jobs. Which brings me to that famous quote from one of my favorite movies: I did everything right, but I'm the bad guy. You guys know what movie it is. Falling Down. If you haven't seen it, you can go rent it from Amazon. A paid advertisement, right, guys? No, but it goes to show that a person like myself, I spent half my life at university getting all those degrees. I have come out of school, I graduated in 2017, and I have not made one red cent from spending half of my entire life going to university. I currently work at a school, and I see people who aren't making it working there and going to school. I know that the game is so rigged against us that there is no golden ticket to anything better. Hourly jobs are just a cesspool of our society where people pretend to work. Because to me, if they're going to treat you like a child, you're going to act like a child in the workplace. If they're going to offer you a motivational rubber toy from a Happy Meal as incentive to perform higher, or in any way offering an adult a child's toy, it means they're going to get childlike work out of you. Because that's what they're saying, right? You know, when they have their raffles or they're playing their loud music or they're making popcorn, or today we had another motivational pizza party from the cheapest pizza you can imagine. When you bring Little Caesars pizza into the office, again, you're telling your workers that this is what you're worth. We're paying you for all of the money that you generate for this evil corporation with a pizza party. And even Gen Z looked at the pizza and said to himself, I'm better than that pizza. And I looked at him and I'm like, no, you're not. And then as we were walking out of the office, I said, you know what? You are wretchedly poor. That was the last thing I said to Gen Z before we left the office today. And he just looked at me like, what am I going to do about it? This is the best paying job he's ever had in his life. And it's not, not exactly what you think. You know, that sub $20 isn't buying you a whole lot of life out there. But again, when you've reached that age and you've never had a good job, because remember, guys, this is my first halfway decent paying job of my entire life. I've been a dollar or two above the minimum wage my entire life and had to work for sadistic managers and supervisors in retail, warehouse, and food my entire life. I know what I'm talking about, people. When you live so close to the bone like this guy, I mean, oh my God, I don't even know if I want to repeat this, because it's very cruel. It's like when I asked him what he was going to have for dinner. I mean, he's like, top ramen. I was like, oh my God, you know. Oh my goodness, God, gracious people. So that was the toxic positivity today. You are wretchedly poor, America, and things are not going to turn around for you in any conceivable way, in any predictable time frame right now. So let's enjoy being poor and wallowing around in the mud and looking at our ugly selves in the mirror and just think to ourselves, well, it can't get any worse. I mean, there's no way that I can get uglier. I mean, maybe.